Walk with a blind rollie. That's the cost of life. Called to stand out, called to be light. Ain't sugarcoating nothing, igniting fake can't be done being nice. Speaking unwanted truth, that's the call for my life. Call for my life, call for my life, call for my life, call for my life. Walk with Bryce.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I have a simple question. And I've been asking questions because I want you to go find them for yourselves. I don't want to tell you how to live your life. I want you to find out how you should be living according to the Word of God. So the question I have for you guys today is, if the devil is more victorious than defeated, then what does that say about you and your life? So getting into the Word, we're going to go into Matthew chapter 16, verse 18. And it says, and Jesus is talking to Peter here, and we kind of touched on this a couple of videos ago. Right after Jesus asks, "Who do you say I am?" He looks at Peter, and he answers to him. And he says to him, as I said before in previous video, Jesus answered and said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." So verse 18 is our key verse here, guys. "And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." You are the church. The church is not a building. The church is not four walls. The church is not a place where you gather. You are the church. Now, it's not that Jesus is disqualifying the church gathering process. What he's saying is that you are more qualified as the church. That when you gather together, it says in the Word, there is He in the midst. So, what am I going to say here? Jesus wasn't talking about a building winning the battle. He was talking about you winning the battle. Because the devil is not attacking a church building. He's not doing that. He's not laying siege to a church building physically. He's attacking who's inside the church spiritually. And if you follow Christ, then you are part of the church. You are part of His problem. And you are part of God's victory, which makes you more of a target than sitting here in a red muscle shirt. So the promise is that the gates of hell won't prevail against you. The issue is that it's up to you to allow the gates of hell to prevail or to not prevail. For you to be rooted and founded on the rock of faith that is in Jesus Christ, or to allow yourself to be shaken and stirred by the schemes and wiles of the enemy. Gates are defensive. They're not offensive, which means you have to stand your ground, which means you cannot give in every time something happens. As someone who struggled with a lot of issues with like lust and gluttony and just self-centered indulgences for a long part of his life, I can assure you that you have to be shut to those things. You can even have a little bit of a crack at the bottom of your gate. It has to be absolutely closed, or the door has to be absolutely closed, for those of you who are thinking doors instead of gates, because the door is a gate. And what this means is that you are, by keeping your gates closed and shut against the enemy, you are allowing the kingdom to advance. Hell will make it a point to seem like it's winning in your life. I'm going through a season right now where it feels like I can't win for losing. You know what I mean? Like I'm struggling just to see the victories in my day-to-day. But the victories are there. I just have to choose to focus on those rather than focus on all the shortcomings and issues I'm going through, you know, during those times and during these situations and circumstances. And I can't allow those things to shape who I am. I have to continue to allow this Word to inspire me to live according to His promises and not according to anyone else's or anything else's. It means that something in your life is misaligned when you're focusing on the things that aren't good than focusing on the goodness of God, which means you have to find yourself in alignment. And that alignment comes, again, by getting in this word, reading this word, and understanding the promises in this word aren't just for Abraham. They're not just for Joshua or Samuel or David or Malachi or Ezekiel or Matthew or Paul. These promises are for you. They're for each and every one of us. And victory will depend, and that victory will depend on who you're following. The question becomes, who are you allowing to lead in your life? Because let's face it, things in your life you are responsible for. You can't blame people for being overweight. You can't blame people for being sick. You can't blame people for not getting the job that you want. You can't blame people for not seeking out the schooling that you want to go into the field of industry you want to work in. You can't blame people for not being as strong as you could be or any of that stuff. It's on you. All that stuff is choices based on decisions that you make in your life. So why don't you take that same sincerity, that same seriousness, that same, particularity? Why don't you take that and apply it to your spiritual life as well and find out who is leading you? Because, what I say here, if the devil is consistently more victorious than defeated in someone's life, it reveals, how many things I got here? It reveals 3 things. I got 3 things that it reveals, right? That they're living by flesh instead of by the Spirit of God. And for that, you can go to Galatians 5:16 for verse reference. It reveals that you're opening your doors to sin or compromise. I'm not saying compromise is always sin, but if you're compromising who you are, even if it's a little bit, like let's say you got a job, and that job says, "Hey, can you come in and work a Sunday evening?" Just every once in a while, and you go in and work that Sunday evening. You haven't normally work Sundays because that's your church day, that's your family day, and that's the day you spend with God. But let's say you just give one day, and I've seen this happen. I've had this happen in my life. I've had this happen in my wife's life, and you go in for that Sunday, and you work a couple Sundays here and there, and all of a sudden you find yourself on the schedule regularly. And then all of a sudden they want you working your Sunday mornings, and you're giving up your time with God. That's compromise that could lead to sin. A more punch in the face is that I'm on my computer doing some work, and I feel that lustful spirit try to rise up against, this flesh. And instead of praying against it, instead of speaking the word against it, instead of praying in tongues against it, instead of warfaring against that spirit of lust, I say, you know what, let me just go look at something that I shouldn't be looking at. That's just straight up sin. That's not even compromise. But that's point number 2. You open the door to sin or compromise. Point number 3. You may be identifying as Christian without surrendering to Christ. My pastor is fond of saying there are billions of people who believe in God or believe in Jesus, but there's not as many people who believe him or believe Jesus for who he is. The issue here is that it's not God's power, it's not God's ability, it's not what he's done, it's not the fact that he has promises that you haven't seen. It's the fact that it's our submission, that we're not giving everything to him, we're not giving in to him, we're not giving over our whole lives, we're only giving part of ourselves. And when you only give part of yourself, you leave a little bit of space for the devil to work in, and he will chip away. Devil's here for the long game. He's here for that eternal damnation. God's already provided you the victory. He's not going to sit here and say, "Oh, don't you remember that I gave you the victory?" He's not going to sit here and pander to you. He's already provided it. It's the devil who's playing that long eternal damnation game where he's like, "You know what? I don't need you. I don't care that you believe in God. I just need you to compromise here, compromise there, chip, crack, breakage." That's what the devil's trying to do. And the issue is that the church is supposed to push back against this darkness, but it doesn't. It doesn't do it always, and it doesn't do it efficiently, because you're meant to confront the darkness. You're meant to stand in a place. You're meant to, move against it, not coexist. You see all those coexist bumper stickers on the back of people's cars that have all the weird symbols. Like, we're not meant to coexist. God didn't call us to coexist. God's first order for Joshua after crossing over into the Jordan, is go into this land and destroy all of these things. Not just the people, not just the crops, but the animals, the pots, the places of worship. He called Israel to destroy all of it because he knew that you cannot coexist with people and be submitted to God. You have to be submitted to God and be an example to people that they also need to coexist with God, and that there was no coexistence with sinful nature. And Jesus gave us the power over the enemy, and I have Luke verse 10 chapter 19 as your verse reference here. And that means that you should be doing 3 things in your life: resisting the devil, closing the doors of sin, and walking in spiritual authority. It's that simple. If hell keeps advancing in your life, unchecked, unmanaged, unopposed, the question isn't, is the devil that strong? The question is, am I actually living as the church? That's a question you got to answer for yourself. I cannot do it for you. Because Jesus said in verse 18, I'll read it again in my closing statement here. On this rock, on you, on me, on all of the people who say they believe me, I will build my church. And the gates of hell will not, not cannot, not may not, but will not prevail against it. So, ask yourself, are you the living church? Are you? I don't know. Hopefully you guys were impacted, and hopefully you'll start to question some things in your life, and maybe, just maybe, you'll start to change. And I'm hoping and praying that you will close those doors of sin and compromise in your life and start walking victorious in the power of God. Peace out, God bless, and I love y'all.